overfishing. We are basically destroying the biodiversity of the oceans. And if you think about nearly 30% of the world's fish stocks are being considered overfished, and it's a huge amount. And overfishing also lead to bycatch species, which means that also, for example, turtles, dolphins, and other type of fish are cut during the fishing procedure. Plus, obviously, the destruction of the marine floor, the coral reef is destroying the ecosystem.
Hello and welcome to ProVeg Talks, the podcast where we go beyond innovation to examine the real-world challenges keeping plant-based food from reaching its full potential. I'm your host, Gemma Tadman, and you're listening to our series Breaking Barriers, Making Plant-Based Mainstream. In this episode, we're diving into a category that's still emerging but full of promise: plant-based fish alternatives. Joining us is a returning guest, Valentina Gallani, Health and Nutrition Manager here at ProVeg International and lead author of the recent report, Out of the Net into the Future, which takes a deep dive into the nutritional profile and market potential of plant-based fish. Valentina, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Gemma. Thank you.
So let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to write this report and why now? What were you hoping to achieve with it?
Yeah, so last year, as you might remember, we published a similar report on the nutritional assessment of plant-based meat and milk alternatives. And we thought about doing something similar on the fish alternatives topic that we saw is not yet so common. I would say is a kind of a new topic, so we decided to publish something similar. And I would say we decided to publish it during summer because in June there was a huge conference from the United Nations in Nice in France, and where they basically discuss about the future of our oceans and in general the issues around the exploitation of the sea. And yeah, exactly, we thought it was a good idea to publish it nearby and raise some concern and awareness about the topic.
Brilliant, thank you. And obviously, fish has long been considered a health food and a sustainable protein, but your report paints a more complex picture. Can you explain why finding alternatives to fish has become so important?
Yeah, there are many different reasons, and I think some are very quickly understandable, other maybe are just a bit hidden. I would say maybe one of the most important thing is through overfishing, we are basically destroying the biodiversity of the oceans. And if you think about nearly 30% of the world's fish stocks are being considered overfished, and it's a huge amount. And overfishing also lead to bycatch species, which means that also, for example, turtles, dolphins, and other type of fish are cut during the fishing procedure, and this is really bad as well. Plus, obviously, the destruction of the marine floor, the coral reef is destroying the ecosystem in general. This is maybe a more hidden thing. We know that there is a lot of plastic in our ocean, and most of the time we think it's just plastic bags, straws, and so on. But most of the plastic that we have in our sea comes from the plastic from fishing procedures, from fishing gear that just being abandoned after fishing, and this is really bad as well. And I would say also it's important to mention aqua farming. So basically try to raise a bigger amount of fish for the demand of the population. And this lead to use of a lot of chemicals, antibiotics, feed that stay in the sea, and also a problem obviously of animal welfare. Yeah, so there are multiple reasons, and it's important also to highlight the hidden cost, the hidden human cost of fishing. We usually don't think about it, but we know that there are a lot of investigation on labor abuses across the whole world. So even in Europe, and this is something really important also to address.
I don't know if you've seen it, but I watched the new David Attenborough documentary last night
Mm-hmm.
on our oceans on I think it's on the Disney Channel, and that
Yeah.
painted a really catastrophic picture of our oceans and especially kind of highlighted bottom trawling. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I already knew the catastrophic effects of our fishing practices, but that really opened my eyes, and yeah, kind of brings to light this whole the importance of the report that you've created.
Yeah, I highly recommend seeing the documentary. I also saw it, and it's really, yeah, heartbreaking.
Mm.
But I think also the final message is that David said during the documentary is that we still have time, we can change things, and I think this is really important. So yeah, have a look at it for sure.
Absolutely. Your report notes that 42% of European consumers find plant-based seafood appealing, which is, obviously a strong foundation and really positive. But what do we know about the barriers for the remaining majority? What's holding them back?
Yeah, so it's a summer different reason. We know from the literature, so like from studies on the population, that maybe one of the main, let's say, um, cause that people really don't want to try new food is food neophobia. So it's like the fear of trying something new out of the comfort zone, and this lead also on the behavior in general, habit changes is really difficult for people, especially in very traditional country where they basically people normal population still eats as 50 years ago, for example. And I think these two are very, very important, to be honest, as the barriers for the people getting into these new type of products. And I would also say that climate change, we all know about climate change, but studies and literature shows that people still see it as not happening right now. So it still feels like something that will happen. And so there is not the urgency of like really starting changing. And this also can be a barrier for people.
In your view, then, what are the biggest psychological or cultural barriers that stop consumers from choosing plant-based fish alternatives today?
Yeah, from my perspective, so in my opinion, definitely taste and texture of the products, especially for those people still cooking with traditional recipes, and maybe it's difficult with like plant-based fish alternatives to have exactly the same meal as of now. So taste and texture, for sure, one of the main barriers, in my opinion. And then there is a bit of reluctance about the ingredients and the ingredients list of these products. Most of the people are still not very keen to try something new, especially when reading the ingredients list. And I would say also here plays a big role the ultra processed food war that we are dealing with at the
Yeah.
moment. And you know that these products fell into these categories. So people try, maybe don't even try it and think they are not healthy foods, just by looking, for example, at the ingredient list and knowing that they are ultra processed. And I would also say there is also a piece of population, a part of the population that is really into nutrition. So they take a look also at the nutritional label, and maybe they think plant-based alternatives are very different nutritionally talking from the, let's say, animal-based fish. And therefore they try to stick with the animal option, because as of now, it's still more nutritious, if we can say so, or in general there are still big differences, and I would say therefore people still try to eat more fish. And obviously our dietary guidelines always promote the thing of we need to eat fish to
Yeah.
stay healthy.
So that brings us nicely to nutrition. Let's talk a
Mhm.
bit more about that.
Yeah.
The report found that 78% of plant-based fish products qualify as a source of protein, which is promising, but there's still variability. What does the sector need to do to become more nutritionally competitive with animal-based fish?
Yeah, I would say first thing that the industry needs to do when try to develop plant-based alternatives is really focus on the primary food that they intend to emulate. So in this case, it's animal-based fish. So they really need to focus on animal-based fish to understand what the alternatives need to have as well. And for example, in this case, we know that animal-based fish provide omega-3 protein and some micronutrients. Therefore, the industry needs to work on protein, omega-3, and micronutrients quantity in the alternatives. And we know we have a really good example of brands that do this already. And by just mixing together different plant food, plant proteins, and fats, and so on, you can really reach something very similar to animal-based fish.
So you mentioned omega-3s, which are one of the key nutrients that consumers associate with fish.
Yeah.
Your report found that only 27% of products listed omega-3 content, and most of those contain ALA, not
Mhm.
EPA or DHA. What are the biggest challenges and opportunities as well, when it comes to, closing that omega-3 gap?
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, probably omega-3 are the most important nutrients that fish provides. So food producers really need to focus on this and develop formulation that contain omega-3 as well. I would say the big challenge, as again, it's taste. It's taste because we know that adding omega-3 and some specific oil can change the taste of a product. And it can be also a good thing because for example, algae oil, which is probably the best ingredients to increase the omega-3 content of these products, also have kind of a fishy aftertaste, which is good
Mm.
because this product needs to be fishy in a sense. But sometimes this can cost pretty much, and the cost can be an issue for the brand, for the food producer. There are still other type of plants oil that we can use, but as we mentioned before, this will give more LAA instead of EPA and DHA. I would say it would be still a great achievement if all the food producers start including this type of plant oil like flaxseed oil or rapeseed oil. But yeah, I would say the best would be introducing overall the microalgae oil because it's the only one that can really provide EPA and DHA in a similar way of fish. And also in terms of this, I think it's important that consumer understand that not all fish provide omega-3, but only fat fish like tuna and salmon, for
Interesting.
example. Exactly. And these fish are also kind of the huge problem of our oceans because they are predatory. So you need to first grow their feed, and the feed for these fish are fish, like small fish. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also the problem with these big fishes is like they accumulate a lot of mercury and microplastic. So yeah, they provide omega-3, but they provide also other nutrients that we don't want.
It's a whole other issue.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Another area of concern is micronutrient fortification, particularly with B12, iodine, and iron.
Mhm.
Why is fortification still so inconsistent across countries and products? And what would it take to make it standard practice?
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't know exactly why fortification is still not so common, especially because we have so many good examples of fortification practices that work. For example, um, salt with iodine. Table salt is definitely something that we all have in our kitchen, and was a very good practice. So we have good example of how fortification can really increase the diet of the whole population in general. But maybe I would say that some reasons are, for example, that food producers starting producing plant-based alternatives. At first, they will still check and try to have the best taste. So maybe nutrition come after. So first they try to find the best taste, and then they will try to fix the nutrition part. And some vitamins and minerals can change a little bit the taste of the products. So it's also a matter of finding the exact quantity to don't change the formula, the taste, but also to give the micronutrients. I think also a problem can be the cost. Obviously changes the cost of a product, because maybe, for example, as a food producer, you also want to communicate that you have added, for example, vitamin B12, and then is a cost also to create the label and maybe asking to add a health claim and so on. And also in this case, I think there is a bit of a barrier from the consumer. And when consumers see a different ingredients in the ingredients list, even if it's a vitamin, always feel like there are two chemicals in this, I don't want to eat it, and so on, even though it's obviously good for their diet. And to make it more standardized, I would say here government plays a big role. So having specific guidelines would help in general food producer, but also for retailers to increase the visibility and to improve the formula of these products.
Moving nicely on to my next question then. One of the report's key takeaways is that systematic change is needed, not just product reformulation. So let's talk a little bit more about retailers. What role can they play in helping plant-based fish alternatives go more mainstream?
Yeah, I would say probably one of the main things they can do, the biggest action they can do, is try to position these products in a different way. So sometimes it's hard to find them. For example, if they just put it in the vegan island, maybe some people will just don't go there and don't see this type of products. On the other hand, maybe it would be good to position them close to normal animal-based fish. So a fish consumer can also be attracted to this new type of products and let them try these new categories. And I would say also price parity is a topic, and food retailers can play a big role here. Try to standardize more the price and make them a good replacement for animal-based food, because this is also kind of a stigma, I would say, that plant-based diets cost more than animal-based one. And in some cases, it's real, because plant-based alternatives sometimes are really expensive because their taxation is higher. And also here, government can play a role, and both with food retailers, they can change the supermarket environment.
Do you think that, governments are doing enough right now to support the development and regulation of this category?
No, in my opinion, at this moment, not much, especially when talking about fish alternatives. We have a good example from the Netherlands. They have guidelines, very, very nice, very well done, about plant-based meat and milk alternatives, how to develop them. They really write down threshold that the product needs to have to be equally nutritious as animal-based food. And this is great. But for example, also Netherlands doesn't have something similar for fish alternatives. And I would say that the more we go into the future, the more there will be this need of having something standardized and very well regulated. So also consumer can feel more uh, more confident to try something that is also officially promoted and that we know that is something out there and that is healthy for us as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned in the report some really exciting ingredients, so algae oil, mycoprotein, and seaweed, that could
Mhm.
help deliver both taste and nutrition. Which innovations do you think are the most promising for the next generation of plant-based seafood products?
Yeah, I would say that there are already very good brands that are working on new technologies. So let's say not just plant proteins created from extrusion and something that we know already. I would say precision fermentation, it would be a huge topic, especially on micronutrients production. And this is something really promising, in my opinion. On the other hand, there are already really nice brand that create 3D printed plant-based fish alternatives, and some of them are working on octopus plant-based alternatives, really interesting. And for example, I tried once a 3D printed smoked salmon, and it was very delicious, very similar to the animal-based one. Um, and I would say also cellular agriculture will play a role in plant-based fish alternatives, and there are already some brands that are mixing cells made from fish cells together with other plant ingredients, and that would be very good to replicate the fish taste and consistency. And yeah, I would say consumer will be very, very happy to have something so similar to the animal-based one.
How can scientists and product developers, strike a balance between clean label demands and, the need for taste additives, the need for additives to mimic fish texture and flavor?
Yeah, that's a topic for sure. The whole additives fear. Um, I would say in general, product developer are scientists themselves. So they are food technologists, food scientists, and so on. So they know um, what they need to look into and to change. And there are already good improvements in trying to find additives, usually from plants, actually, that are more let's use this word natural, even if it's not the best word to use it here, but something that the consumer can be more keen to try, something less chemical. And but this is not honestly is not yeah, an easy request. It's not easy because additives plays a huge role in plant-based alternatives because of the texture most of the time. And what will be very important, in my opinion, is like consumer knowledge in general. So there is the need of more education for the consumer to make them more comfortable and more and like trusting more the food industry as well. While at the moment there is this kind of fear against the ultra processed food in general, but the food industry in general. So I think we need something to bring peace between these two parts of the whole world in general. Yeah.
From a communications perspective, then, what messages resonate most with mainstream consumers when it comes to plant-based seafood? Health, sustainability, animal welfare, how should brands be positioning these products?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think there is a good mix between all of this perspective, and I would say more and more consumers are aware of the disaster happening in our oceans, to the wrong fishing practices, and in general the exploitation of the sea and of the fish. Um, so definitely the health, the environmental impact is something really strong at the moment. On the other hand, there are consumers that are really into nutrition and are concerned about, for example, microplastic that are easily found in the fish that we eat, and in general also um, fish grown in aquaculture. We know that is less nutritious, it's usually more fatty, but with saturated fat, not with the omega-3 fats that we expected from fish. This is something really important as well. And I would say animal suffering plays also a role in this behavioral changing, but not so much. It's still not the first perspective, and in general, the first belief of the consumer. So I would say the brand solution here, it really depends on the brand. So there are brands that want to be the perfect substitution for the animal-based food. So they just focus on being perfectly similar, and they will just communicate this. And then there are other brands that are really into animal suffering, animal welfare. So they will just communicate that their product help reducing animal suffering. And other brands, they might focus on the environmental impact of fishing, and they will just communicate more about that. So I would say it's kind of a brand strategy and values. And I would say it's hard to suggest only one of these perspectives. It really depends on what the brands want to do.
Thank you, Valentina. Let's zoom out. So if manufacturers and stakeholders follow your recommendations, what do you think this category could look like in 5 or 10 years' time from now?
Yeah. I would love to see this category everywhere, and like being able to really emulate animal-based fish food, and that consumers are happy to eat these new type of products, to just help relieving the pressure on our ocean, because it's really important. I would say, I think David says in his documentary that sometimes we focus too much on the earth while not so much on the ocean. Exactly. And this is something we really need to take care for our whole ecosystem. And I think plant-based alternatives can be, if they are really well fortified and developed, can be a win-win for everybody and for our planet as well.
100%. And finally, if you could ask just one group, whether it's producers, retailers, or policymakers, to take one bold action to move this category forward, what would it be?
I would say policymakers, because food producer already started working on this new type of products, so they're already doing their part, while policymakers are still a bit behind, I would say. And we need some guidelines on how to produce this type of food and to, let's say, officialize them. So if policymakers start talking about these plant-based alternatives and communicate that can be healthy and they can be part of a healthy diet as well, it would be a great action, I would say, because a lot of people still relies on organization and on politics. And if they are the first one making the move, I would say all the other can also move together with this new type of healthy diets and plant-based. Exactly, not by just being completely changing their diets, but just by adding new type of food.
Valentina, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. Your report highlights, not just where the category stands today, but how it can evolve into a truly compelling alternative for consumers around the world. For our listeners, you can download the full report, Out of the Net into the Future, at proveg.org. And you can find out more about Valentina and her work on her LinkedIn profile, which I'll link in the show notes. And make sure to catch Valentina's ProVeg Talks nutrition podcast series as well, which she hosts bi-weekly. And to get more support on your alternative protein strategy, make sure to head to the New Food Hub and get in touch with our experts at comms@proveg.org. Thank you so much, Valentina.
Thank you to you, Gemma.